Can you hear that frog? I might have just stopped. Big green tree frog in the it's in the pipe. We're in my house, and he's very, very welcome here at my place. Now, in today's video, what I want to talk about is potting soils, but I want to talk about the history of how they came about, actually, and how I think they've gotten worse and worse over time. And they may, by some people, just be starting to get a little bit better again because people have stopped buying their product because, well, they suck, basically. And they've gotten worse and worse over time. And that's how I ended up making my little compost business here, my little sideline. Because the soils are very, very important. And a potting soil is different to soil in the ground. Soil in the ground, when you feed the soil, you're building up the good microbes, the fungi, and then the plants actually then become, the photosynthesis is sharing with the biology down the ground, and they exchange food to each other. So the sunlight creates the sugars, and the biology down below in the ground, the microbes and fungi and things like that, release other stuff in the ground to able to uptake what they need. But in a pot, it's very, very different. You see, a pot needs to have nutrients, needs to be nutrient dense, and when it gets water in it, it leaches the nutrients and allows the nutrients to be bioavailable to plant. Hence the start of hydroponics, and hence the start of other ways of growing plants, so like spraying hydroponics onto roots and things like that, which I find really very fascinating, that plants can grow like that, and I have grown them like that myself, and it was really, really enjoyable. But people don't really understand potting mixes so much. So when you're actually watering the plant, the release of the nutrients will then get released through the water and then get uptaken to the plant. So without that happening and without that release, the plant can't get any food, right? And so we have to consistently have a good quality potting soil that releases slowly nutrients over time, and we need to top dress the pot with some type of quality as well that will slowly release nutrients when water hits it. And things like putting compost on top, or some chicken pellets and things like that can really, really help. But generally, mostly, unless you're buying a certified organic potting mix, they do have these synthesized petroleum type fertilizers. Now, to be straight open honest with you here, and I know a lot of people who are really hardcore and they won't go near it and won't touch it, but over the years I've used it off and on to grow mostly flowering plants and things like that, and I found it's worked really good. And being a worm farmer, I've just got compost worms just everywhere, and occasionally I'll throw in like a handful of compost into these potting mixes that my wife might be growing some plants, or I've done it over time to grow some flowers and things. And then months later, I found it full of compost worms, and I found them like literally crawling against the side of a slow release fertilizer, and it hasn't killed them, hasn't hurt them at all, and they've actually learned to just live in with it, with that salts. And so that's always sort of opened my eyes, and there's been a lot of research lately showing that it's not really as bad for you as what people think. Now, so I guess it comes down to the choice of what you're doing. Like, we're coming into this stage now where it's so long ago when it first came about. And if you don't know the history of synthesized fertilizers, let's say inorganic fertilizers, well, around World War II, they had excess petroleum left over, big stocks of it. And they're going, what can we do with this? And they discovered that they could actually make a synthesized fertilizer out of it and go, oh, we can sell this to the masses. This is going to solve a huge problem and give everybody this wow factor of amazing growth. And so everyone started using it. Farmers started using it and getting this explosive growth. They're going, well, we can make more money. How cool is this? Until later on, years down the line, they've gone, oh, wow, this has really just degraded our soil. Our place is not being as productive, and so they had to throw out more and more and more and more and more, and they get caught in this trap the synthesized fertilizer trap, and they're going, well, but they've expanded out the farm because they're getting more profit, getting greedy, and going, yeah, more money, and then they're throwing more out, more out, more out. So it just went absolutely crazy. And then because they're getting this explosive growth, the guys that invented this, you know, these synthesized fertilizers and things, they knew that this was coming, right? And so explosive nitrogen growth brought in like different types of bugs and things that would eat the leaves because they want to eat the leaves, herbivorous insects. And then so they had to invent these sprays to come out and spray everywhere and all this type of stuff. And I think you know where I'm coming from, right? This is absolutely mental what's been going on, and people aren't really educated about it because after World War II, there was an excess of petroleum. They invented the petroleum fertilizer and just gone, let's just sell it to the masses. So what's happened in the 80s, right? 80s and 90s is it's after they sold it to all the farmers, they've gone, well, you know, we've been into this 20 years or so or whatever. Let's start making these synthesized products. And this is where my problem lies with it. People started throwing it out on their lawns and getting these beautiful lawns. And what was happening around the place is a lot of the little lakes and rivers and stuff were getting blue-green algae was popping up. And we're going, what's going on with that? Can't swim there anymore. There's just blue-green algae everywhere. This used to be the most beautiful place to go for a swim and hang out with family. And there's this thick algae growing on top. And that's from the nutrients that's released out of from the people's lawns from the synthesized. And the lawn isn't chewing up all the nutrient. When it rains, it's going into the gutter, going down the gutter into the drains and then into the creeks and rivers and things. And so it really started destroying life because there was this excess nutrient just going out everywhere and setting off algal blooms. And that was my first experience of seeing it, and made me sort of think, oh, it's not a really good way to do it. But the problem is, it's not so much, it's the people aren't educated. No one knew that when they were throwing that on the lawn. They're just going, beautiful lawn, look at my lawn, Johnny. Hey, Jack, come over here, Jack. Oh, mate, that's lawns. What are you using, mate? This stuff, mate. It's just a bomb. And they didn't know until years later, until it sort of never really got out of the news and educated people and things like that. So I never throw it out on my lawn or anything like that. I'd take care of my lawn differently. But yeah, that's sort of the major problems with it. So it's not so much in the containers and things like that. It's more of the excess of it, throwing it out onto farms, throwing it out onto lawns, throwing it out onto football fields, and all those things, and just getting all that phosphorus just everywhere and destroying our ecosystems. And when we destroy our ecosystems, well, becomes unhealthy you. And it attacks our health and our life around us. So that's where I have problems with it. Now, I've noticed that since recently, because there's been fertilizers gotten more expensive since Ukraine, the whole Ukraine issue, that they've cut down on the amount of the petroleum fertilizers are going in. They're starting to add other things into there, back into there. They were cutting the other stuff down so much, just throwing so much of the fertilizer in because it was just so cheap to make. And now it's flipping the other way, and they need to find these other additions to add into these potting soils and things to make them better. So I'm hoping that it's going to flip in the other direction, and that it becomes so expensive that people need to look at other solutions and look at nature for answers, and look at people like myself and other people that have been growing in different ways for many, many years to make that change and change over. So something I just wanted to share with you here, that little story about that. It's it's very eye-opening, isn't it? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Please keep it nice in the comments box down below. Everyone's very, very nice in here, but occasionally someone gets a bit explosive. And you know, if you're very passionate about it, we have to understand that other people may move in the other direction, and we've got to respect their opinion. So anyway, just wanted to share that with you. Another talk straight to you here from Marty's Garden. Have a great day. Happy gardening. We'll see you at the next video real soon. Bye for now.